Live right here on this Monday morning, recapping the weekend that was on the early line on SportsGrid. I said right before the break, NBA playoff recaps. That's next. Right now, we recap the finality of the 2025 NFL Draft. And DRS, we did not expect to say that on Saturday we needed the recap where Shedeur Sanders was selected. I thought you and Joe would be doing that on Friday morning. Of course, the slide, unlike really we have ever seen in the history of the NFL Draft, comes to a close in round number 5 on Saturday afternoon with pick number 144 overall. The Cleveland Browns draft Shedeur Sanders. It took so much longer than anybody anticipated, but in the 5th round, the draft stock of Shedeur Sanders stopped slipping, and the Cleveland Browns make their determination. Donnie, there was multiple times throughout the 2025 NFL Draft that on Thursday, Friday, even Saturday, the Browns were the odds-on favorites to draft Shedeur Sanders. We just thought entering Friday night in night number 2, it might have been in their first 2 picks in the opening 4 selections of that 2nd round. What did you make on the draft slide that was for Shedeur Sanders to end up in a very jumbled and chaotic-looking quarterback room in Cleveland?
It's pretty incredible. Now, understand this, me from a college football perspective. It's why I don't do the draft stuff. Like, I don't analyze these guys. I don't really bet the draft, but I do know what talent is when I see it. And the hype all through the season, again, to start the season, with Shedeur Sanders possibly being the number 1 overall pick before the season started. He didn't have a bad season. He put up some really good numbers. So the fall from everybody overdrafts quarterbacks to him dropping to the 5th round was pretty crazy. But let's understand this from a Cleveland perspective. They got a lot of good football players. And we were thinking that they might be taking Shedeur Sanders in the 1st round, or at least he was the mild favorite when we talked here on Friday morning at the FanDuel Sportsbook to be picked number 33. And he fell all the way down. So I do think that the Browns may have gotten a gem right here, getting all the players they wanted, offensive backfield help, tight end help, which I absolutely loved who they picked, and then also a stud defensive lineman to go on that defense that has a lot of capable pieces already. But the Shedeur drop was crazy to me. Like, I thought he should have been a 1st-round pick. I thought, wow, somebody's going to get value in the 2nd round. For him to drop all the way that far, let's understand this too, because it isn't all about football talent, because you'll see the haters online and you'll see the people are backing Shedeur. I think it was a combination of maybe his arm strength isn't that deep, but I want to know really what happened in some of these meetings. Was it where, like the talk that we saw Dion before the season, I'm not letting my son go to certain teams, and then saying, okay, son, when you go into an interview, or at least it's only a 10-minute interview, you know, maybe throw things a little bit out of whack so they don't think they can draft you, because I have 3 teams circled I want you to go to. Well, when that circles around even to the teams that they want to go to, and Shedeur actually has a very good interview, let's just say, in the back of their mind going like, if things don't work out our way, is he going to pull some shenanigans behind the scenes? That all goes into it. Let's understand this. It wasn't strictly about talent, him dropping to the 5th round, which we'll find out more because you'll get more of that behind-the-scenes talk. But for me, I thought he was going round number 1. I did.
Yeah, so DRS, I think there's so much, right, convoluted in this Shedeur Sanders scenario. And why exactly did his draft stock take maybe the largest hit we have ever seen from a guy that exactly a week ago, when you and I were welcoming people to a Monday on the early line, saying welcome to NFL Draft Week officially, Shedeur Sanders was minus 280 to be a top 10 pick, not just a 1st rounder, a top 10 selection. So to end up in round number 5, not just round 2, night 2, round 3, even by the end of Friday or early on Saturday, but number 144 overall is absolutely stunning and shocking, and perhaps the largest draft slide we have ever seen. I think there's been so much reporting and so much information divulged about Shedeur Sanders and his NFL draft stock that we're not breaking any news here. I would say the summation that makes the most sense to me is what NFL Network's Tom Pelissero shared out on Saturday morning before the start of round number 4. That it's not just the character or the bravado or the perceived cockiness for Shedeur Sanders, that maybe this guy is slightly a jerk. I think it is the way that he went about the draft process. And DRS really getting rid of the opportunity to work out in front of draft scouts. They can watch his college tape from his time at Boulder all they want, but to without working out in front of their eyes, choosing only his Colorado Pro Day really to have that full examination when everything can be scripted, I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and maybe moved him down draft boards in ways we did not expect. I'm not saying it's correct. I am not saying it is fair. In fact, I would lean the opposite. But for me, that is the reason that Shedeur Sanders saw such a slid in his draft stock. And a guy that Donnie, if you would have told me on Thursday night, hey, based on the talent, if you really watch the game film from his time in Boulder, he's not a first-round quarterback. In a weak quarterback draft class in 2025, I'd say okay. For how things played out on Friday, and then ironically enough, for Shedeur to go to the team where it was the most shocking draft pick at the time, Dylan Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders, to end up in that same rookie minicamp in quarterback room, that is the ironic thing. And that was the part that I think left all of us stunned.
No, it did leave us stunned at that point because the expectations, again, we're oddsmen here, like with the FanDuel Sportsbook. And if you have a heavy favorite going for a certain spot here, and this team in the Pittsburgh Steelers, no way he gets to 21, you might have to trade up to get him. For him to fall out of the first round, it's like, okay, teams may have not had him as high as we actually thought in the media than some of the scouts did. But for sure, again, the odds market reappeared on day number 2 and said, Shedeur is going to the Browns. We don't know if it's going to be the first overall pick. He's a minus 130, minus 140 favorite early in the morning, which again, shifted throughout the day. But there's no way he makes it past the 4th pick in the 2nd round because once again, that's Cleveland. But understand this as well. If you would have told Cleveland Browns fans that you were going to get Shedeur Sanders, like, oh man, what do we have to trade up to get in the 1st round? For you to get him in the 5th round there and get stud players all the way through up to that, and if you now get it an angry Shedeur Sanders, that, I mean, I don't think you need any motivation. The guy played very well in high school, very well early in his college career, and at Colorado to say, I can't believe all these people picked over me. Let me really hone in and test my skills here. Maybe the Browns got the absolute steal of the draft here in Shedeur Sanders. We don't know that yet, but it's just the way that it might be heading towards that path.
Listen, we've seen day 3 quarterbacks have some success. Right now, Dak Prescott is a starter. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, a starter. When you think day 3, you think round 6, you think 199 overall, and you think Tom Brady. Of course, we're not putting Shedeur Sanders in that stratosphere just yet. You do wonder, though, DRS, because now it's the time for the response. If your questions about Shedeur's character is his perceived cockiness, how does this humbling experience affect him? He does not come in now as the presumed starter by any means. He's battling for a spot in the quarterback room and on the 53-man roster. One final thought on the draft next. So one final thought on how the 2025 NFL draft played out, with I'm sure many more looks throughout this week, but specifically here on the story of the draft, both round number 1, night number 1, and night number 2, rounds 2 and 3, continuing, Donnie, in an unexpected fashion till Saturday afternoon in round number 5. Pick number 144 overall, Shedeur Sanders, selected by the Cleveland Browns. Here is how the Browns quarterback room looks for the upcoming 2025 NFL season. They traded for Kenny Pickett earlier this offseason from Philadelphia. Right now, is he the presumed number 1 starting quarterback? Perhaps. They bring back Joe Flacco, who led Cleveland to a playoff appearance in only 5 games as a starter in the regular season 2 years ago. Then you've got the guy, Dylan Gabriel, who was drafted 94th overall, stunningly in front of Shedeur Sanders. Sanders drafted in the 5th round, and of course, Deshaun Watson, who we did not expect to play this year, but Cleveland, of course, still heavily tied into all of those finances from the salary perspective. Donnie, when Myles Garrett was brought back by the Cleveland Browns earlier this offseason for $40 million per year, Myles Garrett had expressed that he wanted to be traded because he wanted to play for a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So when Garrett was pushed on that idea, how do you feel the Browns can be a legitimate Super Bowl contender without a starting quarterback in place? He told the reporters, the Browns have told me they have a plan for the quarterback room. Is that it?
Yeah, doesn't look like a great plan to me overall. And understand this, you were hoping to get a veteran guy, and you did in Joe Flacco. Does that move the needle for me? No. Kenny Pickett comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles. Does that move the needle? No. But at least you got 2 competent starters, per se, that have started in the NFL. But the interesting part to me is Deshaun Watson is obviously just going to be scapegoated right out of town, and rightfully so. Don't even show up to camp. Here's your paycheck. Just hang out here. But is there animosity in that quarterback room? Because, Kenny Pickett seems like a nice guy. Joe Flacco, he's a nice guy at this point. But Dylan Gabriel gets drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Like, what is that training camp, roster looking like where the Browns say, well, we like Dylan Gabriel over you, Shedeur. So he's going to get the majority of the snaps. Like the quarterback room is really interesting and maybe muddied at this point where competition always leads to success for me. So if you have 4 of those guys outside of Deshaun Watson competing for the job, may the best man win. So go ahead and do it. But what's the treatment of Dylan Gabriel to Shedeur Sanders? 2 rookies coming in, because the reason I bring this up, if you remember the Commanders back in the day with RG3, they drafted Kirk Cousins as well. But there was a clear path that's like, no. RG3 is our starter, but we thought Kirk Cousins was really good, and on the board, he was the best value there, so we took him. Let's see how things work out. And it turned out that Kirk Cousins turned out to be the better quarterback because RG3 got some injuries there. But that's not what Cleveland did here. So I'm interested to see how Cleveland treats this situation right away. It's like, no, Shedeur. You're 4th on the depth chart. That's where you're going to be. We're going to let Dylan at least spin this year to see if he can win the job. It's kind of crazy.
And RG3, of course, was the 2nd overall pick, and Kirk Cousins was a 4th round selection. This is a late 3rd rounder in Dylan Gabriel, kind of that bare minimum in terms of maybe competing for a starting job. But DRS, what is so interesting, and at some point in his career, not right away for Dylan Gabriel, but what is so interesting about Cleveland being the franchise that ended up with Shedeur Sanders, by the time we reached round number 4, I really thought it would be some team we did not expect or even highlight in Shedeur Sanders conversations, either in the build-up to the NFL draft or on Thursday or Friday, because the teams that we did, the Steelers, the Raiders, even the Browns, had passed on Shedeur Sanders so many times already, and specifically for the Browns, had selected another quarterback in round number 3 in front of Sanders. So again, we can debate the why Shedeur Sanders' draft stock took a big tumble, but the reality is that it did. So how does Shedeur Sanders respond? Because he is not going to Cleveland now to be that day 1 starter. He is not going to Cleveland now, despite the notoriety that will always follow him, to become the starting quarterback at some point in 2025. DRS, Sanders is heading to the land to try to earn a spot, maybe on a practice squad or at all in that quarterback room as a 2nd or 3rd stringer. So how does that humble him? How does he respond in doing so? And will that competition be the key and the difference? That's what we await to see.
We do. And also understand this, too, how players are built differently, right? Like Shedeur is an alpha. How does he handle being the 3rd or the 4th string quarterback? But we should put up a poll on this one. I'm telling you right now, Shedeur Sanders is going to start at least 1 football game for the Cleveland Browns in 2025. There's no doubt in my mind. That quarterback room isn't strong enough where they're going to have a great season. Shedeur will be starting at some point this season. Will he be great? Will he be bad? I don't know. He will start a game in 2025.
The weekend that was around the 2025 National Football League draft. He is Donnie, I am Ben, recapping everything we saw on night number 2 and day number 3. Of course, DRS and Germanary had you covered for the recap of the opening round on Friday morning. But we'll look at everything in the microcosm that was the 2025 NFL draft and a sensational weekend in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Of course, DRS, whether it's a loaded quarterback draft class or one that is not looked at all that favorably by NFL organizations and talent evaluators, QBs always move the needle more than most. Here were the results of the quarterbacks taken outside of the opening round. Only 2 in round number 1. Cam Ward, 1st overall. The Giants trading back in, and at 25th overall, drafting Jackson Dart. Tyler Shuck was the earliest QB to go on night number 2. Round 2, pick 8, 40th overall to the New Orleans Saints. 25 years old. Turns 26 in September. Kellen Moore drafted a guy they hope can be that face of the franchise right away for the rookie head coach in the Big Easy. The 2 other QBs, DRS, we saw on night number 2, both in round number 3. Jalen Milroe, 92nd overall to Seattle, and 94th overall, perhaps the most stunning quarterback to go in front of Shedeur Sanders. Now his teammate in Cleveland, Dylan Gabriel. DRS, what was your reaction to the 3 quarterbacks that went before Shedeur Sanders following round number 1?
Yeah, surprised they did because, again, I thought, just based on the odds and what I was hearing for the past couple months that Shedeur Sanders, the only matter is will he be top 5? Will it be the Giants at 3? Do the Giants trade back into the first round to get Shedeur Sanders? But there's no way Shedeur Sanders can get past the Pittsburgh Steelers at, let's just say, at 21 at that point. Well, he did all that and made it to round number 5. But Tyler Shook, for me, again, not watching a lot of football and breaking down film, seems, look, NFL talent evaluators, and Kellen Moore included, understand what they're doing and they know the quarterback position. So you trust that it's the right move. You'd like to get a kid that's 21 or 22 years old, figuring to have more. But at the quarterback position, these guys are playing into their prime well into their mid-30s. I'm not worried about that. But I do think an intriguing one there was to the Seattle Seahawks with Jalen Milroe. Because the fact is, you hope you have your franchise quarterback that you signed as a free agent in Sam Darnold. But if that doesn't work out, you have a pretty good plan B. But also understand this. Now, Jalen Milroe is an unbelievable athlete that you can use in certain packages. I love in the NFL, short yardage situations, goal line situations. He can help you out right away without having to learn the system on the fly and understanding the weight of being a franchise quarterback. In 2 to 3 years, he might be your franchise quarterback. In 2 to 3 years, you drafted him in the 3rd round. You might be able to trade him for the 2nd round or the 1st round, just depending on how things start to shake up. So I'm intrigued by the Milroe play because I love an athletic quarterback that can do multiple things, like start for your team or just come in for packages and make a difference right away. The one was the head scratcher. Really is Dylan Gabriel. Because if you were a college football fan and you watch a lot of games, he put up big statistics, was a good runner, athlete, all the way around. But it's just to me, I don't know where he fits in Cleveland or in the NFL picture. He's not a super strong guy, doesn't have the big-time cannon arm, but he is a winner, and he has put up stats. So I think it makes sense for Cleveland. But if I had to say Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel in 2 years, who's still going to be on the Browns or at least be a starting quarterback, I'm still going Shedeur Sanders over that point, which makes it really weird that they went Gabriel, then Sanders, and then pit them against each other. You probably should have just went round 3 Shedeur Sanders and drafted another person in round number 5 that could help the football team out. It was interesting to me on what they did.
That's what makes the actual selection of Shedeur Sanders, not where he slid and where he ended up, all that much more fascinating. Because it wasn't the first time the Browns could have drafted Shedeur, even outside of round number 1. They passed on him so many times on night number 2, and they drafted another quarterback who it was clear, DRS, by all reporting, the Browns liked a ton more. Whether you agree with that assessment or not, it was clear that Cleveland was infatuated with Dylan Gabriel and wanted to use a valuable 3rd-round selection on him, and then ended up with Shedeur Sanders at 144 overall on Saturday afternoon. I'm not so sure either guy will start a game for Cleveland this year or in their careers. Donnie has said Shedeur Sanders is going to start for the Browns this year. There's a chance that both of them start this year because DRS, the Browns are not exactly a quarterback powerhouse either right now or, of course, in the last 2.5 decades. But it's all very intriguing to see that Dylan Gabriel was selected by the same team. That was the most stunning decision of a quarterback in front of Shedeur Sanders for Sanders to end up in the same QB room.
Let me get a quick point on this, Ben, because I want your opinion also after the break. Like, we talk so much about Shedeur Sanders and how he can be the starting quarterback, what happened to him. How's Dylan Gabriel's camp like this? Like, you drafted me in the 3rd round, then you put Shedeur right behind me. Like, that doesn't sound like a lot of confidence, either me or what's supposed to happen for the Browns. Interesting.
Completely agree, DRS. That's a great point that we'll discuss further next. Live right here on the early line on this Monday morning, recapping the 2025 NFL Draft. DRS, as we saw throughout the weekend, 13 quarterbacks in total selected at some point throughout the 2025 NFL Draft. 2 in the opening round, 3 on night number 2, and as we just discussed, Dylan Gabriel ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Now, you said something earlier comparing not quite to the RG3 and Kirk Cousins selections back in, I think, 2013, 2012, whatever it was. But it's not necessarily that. Dylan Gabriel, the end of the 3rd round, Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. Neither guy expecting to be the starting quarterback for Cleveland at a point this year, but certainly not beginning in week number 1. Neither guy seen as the face of the franchise. But you looked at it from the angle of Gabriel's camp. Hey, you drafted me because I was your guy in all the conversations that we actually had when I went to the Senior Bowl, when I went to the NFL Combine, when I worked out in Indianapolis, and for you guys on a top 30 visit we seem to jive very well. And yet you draft this other guy that, although he slid, is going to have all the attention and notoriety surrounding him. What gives? Am I not good enough? Do I not get my chance to prove it? It is that kind of weird dichotomy, DRS, which makes the Browns' selection of Sanders a little bit questionable to me as well. I really think from Shedeur's perspective, it's an interesting moment entering the National Football League. Obviously, at some point, Shedeur and his camp over-evaluated his talent stock, over-evaluated where he was going to land. Because if he ends up in the top 10 or even in round number 1, he goes in there expecting to be the starter early in his rookie season, whether that's week 1 or week 7 at some point. Now, Donnie, as we had shared, from the football perspective, Shedeur Sanders is going to Cleveland to maybe, just maybe, earn a spot on the 53-man roster, or maybe, just maybe, hold on to a training camp invite or a practice squad spot at the end of it all. That's what happens when you're drafted in the 5th round, your name, your notoriety, or otherwise.
He's got to make the team. There's no way he can make it to the practice squad. Somebody's going to snap him up at that point. Like, if there was a thing around the NFL, it's like, oh, we're going to show him, which I don't believe. Like, NFL general managers, owners, and coaches, they want to win football games. They're going to play the best player, even if it has a character default on the player. We've seen bad characters come to the NFL and perform highly, and players play because they help you win football games. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be a practice squad guy. He would be gone in week number 2 once that contract isn't guaranteed at that point. But understand this too. If you're looking from a Cleveland perspective, like, the room actually made some sense, right? You have the aging veteran in Flacco, if you can lean on a good locker room guy. You have the younger veteran in Kenny Pickett. So my thought process would have been, okay, we're going to roll with Kenny Pickett as a starter. If something goes wrong, we have Joe Flacco that can just be there to add stability. But then we want to add a young quarterback to the mix. So you actually have a really good quarterback room. Now you throw a wrench into it by taking 2 young guys and having them challenge because they both think they should be starters. And then you have the older veteran and the younger veteran still in the room. I don't think it makes that much sense, because understand this. Everybody's supposed to be professional, but people used to get mad at, all right, Brett Favre here. Well, I'm not going to help Aaron Rodgers out. You're supposed to do that and be a good teammate. That's your job. You're trying to groom him for, to take it from you. Yeah. So when Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders show up in the same room, they'll shake hands and wish each other well, and then immediately once they're done doing that, they're like, I hope this guy stinks and I can beat him out here at this point. There's no helping those 2 guys. Oh, we're best friends as rookies here. So I do think it's a detriment to that quarterback room. But for me, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to go to training camp and get cut from the Browns. And if he goes to the practice squad, he will be gone from that team, which makes it interesting, which is what to do with Pickett and Flacco. They're carrying 4 active quarterbacks on that roster. That's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so, DRS. It's a really good point, but you do wonder if none of the other 31 NFL organizations, all with multiple opportunities to select Shedeur Sanders, didn't do so in the draft. Why would they take Cleveland scraps if it ends up being that case? Of course, DRS is right. They always want to win if the opportunity presents itself and it makes sense. Shedeur Sanders will have a spot. First and foremost, though, using what was, of course, a humbling experience to try to take advantage of his opportunity now with the Cleveland Browns, because it might not have been in the 1st round or even in rounds 2 through 4, but Sanders was drafted to the NFL, and that is an accomplishment in itself. Go out there and earn your spot. Kyle McCord, who led the nation in passing, set an ACC single-season record this past year at Syracuse, drafted to his hometown team, a native of regional Philadelphia, heads to Philadelphia for the Eagles in round 6. Will Howard, a Pittsburgh Steeler drafted in the 6th round as well. And DRS, what's really interesting here, a lot of conversation about the Shedeur Sanders slide. Not enough about Quinn Ewers being drafted in the 7th round with the 15th pick in that 7th and final round. A lot of conversation about the NIL landscape in college football and taking that leap to the National Football League. There is no doubt that Quinn Ewers could have made more last season than he will make in the entirety of his rookie contract with Miami or elsewhere. But Quinn Ewers wanted to play in the National Football League. He will get his opportunity with the Finns.
And I respect it. And some people will say, like, how could you pass up all that money? But sometimes in the point of your life where you've had your fill of a college experience, you have made some money, and you said, boy, I really liked it at Texas here. Now I'm ready to go pro. I just hope I get an opportunity, which the Dolphins will give him. Or you could have stayed around again to be around college peers for a couple $1,000,000 and maybe to enjoy yourself. Because contrary to popular belief, money isn't everything to a lot of these athletes. Like, the only thing I need is just to get paid and we'll see where it winds up. He thought the best evolution of his life was to go professional and try his ranks there. I don't have any problem with that. Some people look at it as foolish, should have took the money here, but he's ready. And if he's ready, let him go.
And he earned a lot of money during his time in college, first at Ohio State and then, of course, with Texas. He is also a native of Austin. He always wanted to be with the Longhorns. He left a legacy with the Longhorns as well. 2 consecutive college football playoff berths, first conference championship that Longhorns had seen in 15 years back in 2023. Yes, he could have transferred somewhere, as Arch Manning will have the job this year for Texas, and made a lot of money. And you should always earn as much money as possible at any stage of your career, football or otherwise. But if you are the person that looks at these college athletes and makes fun of them or questions their integrity as they chase a bag, and then are the same person that points and laughs at Quinn Ewers for passing up on that money, you are just a hater who cannot make your own bag in doing so. DRS, a couple of other quarterbacks drafted in between Will Howard and Quinn Ewers. Riley Leonard heads to Indianapolis. A lot of people have joked he's kind of like the merger of Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones in one. He'll be in that same quarterback room. Graham Mertz to the Houston Texans. Loved what Vegas did at the end of round 6. Tommy Millant, who is the quarterback at Montana State, more than likely they say he will transition to a wide receiver in the NFL. But he played in the FCS National Championship game against North Dakota State's quarterback Cam Miller, who was drafted just a few picks later by the Raiders as well. And Curtis Rourke, who led Indiana to a college football playoff appearance a season ago, 7th round draft pick. Those mean something in San Francisco at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, just taking some flyers later on. Maybe you find gold, and certainly with Brock Purdy, you say, hey, man, look at the 7th round picks and the Tom Brady's of the world. You might uncover some of those gems, but also you do need quarterback arms in training camp, which is why these guys get looks. They'll stay on a practice squad, and every couple of years, those 6th and 7th round picks will rotate out of the quarterback positions. We'll find that to go. But of those, I don't know if you got a gem looking at it, but then again, we didn't think Brock Purdy would be a gem either getting drafted that late.
Yeah, you've got some opportunities to earn a playing spot, to earn a spot on a roster. Why not go out there and try to do so? DRS, some other notable picks from the weekend that ones. The pair of Ohio State running backs go early in round 2. Quinshon Judkins to Cleveland, Travion Henderson to New England. Love that pick for the Pats, by the way. Will be very interesting to see where Henderson factors in to the running back room alongside Ramondre Stevenson. And I love Cam Skattebo to the New York Giants. A little bit later than we expected in round number 4, but Donnie, he is going to be a fan favorite if he can make an impact with the G-Men.
No, I remember when Jeremy Shockey went to the Giants, I was upset about that being a Miami fan. He came in and took New York City by absolute storm right off the bat. I don't know if Skattebo's going to do that, but he will be a fun player to watch, no doubt about it.
Wow, what do they have in common? More on the early line up next. Live right here on this Monday morning on the early line on SportsGrid, recapping the entirety of the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll talk some Rookie of the Year odds, both offensively and defensively, in just a moment as well. We talked about Cam Skattebo right before the break, DRS, early in round 4 to the New York Giants. Alongside with Tyrone Tracy in that backfield, they've got some dynamic players there for the G-Men. Luther Burden III goes to Chicago early in round number 2. Harold Fannin Jr., the record setter out of Bowling Green, makes his way to Cleveland. And Mike Green, a talented edge rusher out of Marshall, who led FBS college football in 2024 with 17 sacks, drafted by the Ravens at the end of round 2. The reason, DRS, that Mike Green was on the slide is some personal character issues. Accused of sexual assault during his high school playing days, originally signed at Virginia, had to sign a zero-tolerance policy at UVA, broke said policy with more sexual assault allegations during his time in Charlottesville, transferred to Marshall because of some of those character concerns, slid later in the draft. The Ravens take a shot on him. You do hope that he has turned things around, but that's why he is not a first-round talent, because of those very serious and significant allegations outside of the playing field. But you were a big Harold Fannin Jr. guy, said he was your sleeper. He goes earlier than some presume, DRS, even if it was night 2, but early in round number 3.
Yeah, I like that too. And by the way, quick comment on Mike Green. Like, presumption of innocence, you get that, and you'll go through the legal, trials and tribulations. But also understand this from a Ravens perspective. They're dealing with this from their kicker too. And then to add on to that at the draft, look, there is something to say about is talent. Can you win a football game? Yes, but that's interesting for the Ravens, who are just like, jumping right back into that arena for the wrong reason. We'll wish him well, and hopefully he gets his life together and has a good, productive career. But interesting for the Ravens, no doubt. Fannin Jr., love the kid. And by the way, with the Browns, like I liked what they did, because I do like the fact that until you get your quarterback, keep trying. So they get Gabriel and they get Shedeur Sanders. We'll see if one of those two quarterbacks works out. Better to have two than one. But it was interesting to me that Quinshon Judkins, who I loved in college at Ohio State, went ahead of Travion Henderson. I just thought Henderson was like that perfect prototype back that Cleveland would have loved to have, and the fact that they passed on him and went to the Browns. So your opinion is right. Love what the Patriots did, because that's a perfect guy to have in the backfield for your young quarterback in Drake May. But Howard Fannin Jr. going to the Browns, to now, like, the two tight end set, I love in the National Football League. Like, really, like, who's the originators of it? You could probably say the New England Patriots, but boy, you have two super athletic tight ends on your roster for your young quarterbacks coming through. Now you add the running game with Quinshon Judkins. You already got, some solid wide receivers. I like where Cleveland went here. I just thought it was interesting that Judkins went over Henderson. But Fannin Jr., you want to talk about a guy that doesn't block all that much? Neither does Njoku. You got two wide receivers at tight end with big bodies out there, baby. I love it.
Fannin Jr. probably going to play some sort of hybrid role. The reason he was not the first tight end, despite setting single-season records for all FBS tight ends ever, is because he is not the greatest inline blocker, a little bit smaller, but what an athletic freak that he is. DRS, Travion Henderson was the minus money favorite, around minus 400, right before round 2 started on Friday, to be that first pick by the Browns at number 33 overall. Cleveland does not take him with either of their top 2 picks in the first 4 of round number 2. Henderson does not wait long to get snatched up early in that second round by New England. How about friends of the program here on the early line? We had the distinct pleasure of interviewing a couple of NFL draft prospects during the draft process. Ja Joyner, the edge rusher out of Minnesota, signs as an undrafted free agent with the Las Vegas Raiders. Big Marcus Harper II signs with the Colts. One guy, DRS, the mulleted man from Pittsburgh, the tight end Gavin Bartholomew, a 6th-round pick out of Pittsburgh, headed to Minnesota. Congrats to all of them. They will get an opportunity at the next level in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll follow him along there. And again, some people say Bartholomew only got drafted because of the swag that he has out there on the football field, going to Minnesota in a good environment with a great play caller here. So we'll wish those kids well, certainly, on their journey into the NFL.
Yeah, certainly so, DRS. In the common denominator among all 3 of those NFL draft prospects now in the National Football League, Donnie mentioned his D3 playing days in college football to each and every one. Rookie of the Year odds now, DRS. We start on the offensive side. Some interesting odds opening up, and we'll talk about Travis Hunter in just a second. Because of the fact he might split duty in Jacksonville, he is not the favorite for either offensive ROI or defensive ROI either. The favorite offensively, the 6th overall pick to Las Vegas, that would be Ashton Jeanty at plus 270. Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, not the best price, a 4-1 number for Tennessee.
Yeah, you're looking at Ashton Jeanty being the starter from day number 1, which means a few hundred touches. He should be the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. The question is not Cam Ward, who's going to play all 17 weeks, but how efficient can he be and what that team is going to look like. And then you get to Travis Hunter at a plus 750 price. We don't technically know what he's going to do full time. So if you say we're going to split some time on defense and offense, that's going to affect the overall statistics that he has, catches that he can get on offense or interceptions on defense per se. So Jeanty does make a lot of sense, because he'll be fun, and you could probably pencil him in for double-digit touchdowns as a rookie right away. And if Cam Ward doesn't light it up, 4,000-plus yards, 28 touchdown passes, it probably will go to Jeanty. But that true wild card here really is Travis Hunter, because maybe you should just have Rookie of the Year, and he'd be a runaway favorite if he's playing both ways like a Shohei Ohtani would be in baseball. Like, how do you not give this guy the award when he pitches and hits?
And that is the distinction, though, offensive and defensive in the National Football League, DRS. There is no doubt that maybe the most impactful rookie to begin will be Travis Hunter. To have 1,000 receiving yards in his rookie campaign, plus 230, not all that long of a price, 75-plus catches and multiple interceptions, plus 250, 10 total touchdowns, 7-1. Total touchdowns, I would presume, includes the potential of a pick six, 5 offensive touchdowns. It does not. No special teams.
Yeah,
Thank you, Joe
yeah, he's
Friesa.
not scoring
5
touchdowns.
offensive touchdowns and at least a defensive score, 12-1, to win both Rookie of the Year awards, DRS, 50-1. We'll get your thoughts on Travis Hunter and his new role in his new home of Duval. Up next here on the Early Line. Welcome back to this Monday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid. Travis Hunter traded up 4 by the Jacksonville Jaguars to draft him number 2 overall because he is seen as a unicorn. In fact, if you heard from 34-year-old GM for his first year in Jacksonville, James Gladstone, you would think that Travis Hunter is the most special talent the world has ever seen. And maybe that is the case, DRS. We showed the odds in the season specials for Hunter's rookie campaign in Duval County. Here is where they stand. Of all of those prices that you can bet on right here, right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook, which one looks the most intriguing or perhaps the most out of whack?
Well, it's certainly not the 10-plus total touchdowns at a 7-1 price, which means, again, if you're not using special teams, you probably say, oh, he scores 8 on offense and 2 on defense. And then you look one down and go 5 offensive touchdowns and 1 defensive touchdown is 12-1. It's almost double the price point. Like, why would you bet the 7-1 knowing that for him to get 10-plus touchdowns as a rookie wide receiver, he might be part-time? Why would you even go that direction? You know he's going to be playing defense at some point, and he is a defensive maven, which means that ball gets intercepted, he's electric in the open field. That's by far a better bet. 5 offensive touchdowns and 1 defensive touchdown at 12-1. Who would go for the 7-1? Nobody. Take the 12-1. It's way better value.
Yeah, such better value. I completely agree. By all indications, DRS, in Jacksonville, they are going to let him play on both sides of the football. How much? An even 50-50 split? Is he going to be out there for 70+% of the snaps on either side of the ball throughout 2025? Probably not. Again, he is still looked at as a wide receiver first, corner second. I'm not so sure that makes sense. I'll let a lot smarter football minds handle that than me. But, Donnie, it is really exciting to see him in Duval. Why? Liam Cohen, a very bright offensive mind, tasked with reinvigorating the career of his quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. They have Brian Thomas Jr. after a sensational rookie season of more than 1,000 receiving yards on one side, and Travis Hunter on the other. That should cause some optimism for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And by all indications in Duval County, they believe in Travis Hunter above all else. So I am really excited at the prospect of what Hunter is going to do as a Jag in his first year.
Yeah, me too. I'm intrigued. The kid has, a great head on his shoulders, was an unbelievable performer, doing things that we've never seen on the college football level, the Heisman Trophy winner, and seems like he has a fantastic attitude. In every video you see, he's always having some fun with a big smile on his face. And he says he wants to play both ways, and I get that. But it's just going to be interesting to see how they actually deploy that, because you are talking about one of the better young rookie wide receivers we've seen in a couple years there in Brian Thomas Jr. He was phenomenal. You have a big, talented quarterback with a big arm to get Travis Hunter the football. I just think it's best, even if it's one of those splits where I'm going to play just about every single passing down on defense that we think it's going to be a passing down. And then on offense, when we need to go to our up-tempo pass game, I'll be in there and sort of ease them into the process. I think it makes the most sense. So we're looking at those buy points on where it would be. I do expect him to play a decent amount of defense and offense, and I do expect him to score a defensive touchdown because he is great at jumping pass routes, and he's just said, electric running with the football. He'll score a defensive touchdown this year, and there's no doubt in my mind he's getting 5 touchdowns on offense, but 10 on offense when you're not truly full-time offense, that's hard to do. That's why I like that price point of 12-1 much better than the 7-1 price on the 10 total touchdowns.
Plus 750 for Travis Hunter to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Again, Ashton Genty is the favorite at plus 270. Not sure I love what the Raiders have in store for 2025. Not sure I love that price on Genty, but it was the earliest we had seen a running back selected, DRS, 6th overall since 2018 when Saquon Barkley went second. Barkley, the last running back to win Offensive Rookie of the Year as well. Abdul Carter, 3rd overall pick, the rightful favorite at plus 250 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I like that number. I think Abdul Carter is going to wreak some havoc from the very start in his National Football League playing days. DRS, not much of a change to the Super Bowl odds following the 2025 NFL Draft, but the reigning champs remain the favorites, plus 650 for Philadelphia. Really, the changes we have seen prior to the draft, a shakeup among the trio of AFC teams, the Ravens and the Bills, both shorter prices than Kansas City.
Yeah, well, then again, a lot of going to change here. Also, keep in mind, this week, I believe, starts where you could start to make some of those changes to your roster by signing extra free agents because it doesn't count to the compensation factor anymore. So I look for some of these teams maybe to make some trades for next year, get some cuts and releases, and also some teams signing some talent here at that point. But we'll find this shakeout. We'll get a better feel for these teams as we start to approach May, which is this week, June, and July. And by the way, July, we have a preseason game in July this year. July is football season. Officially, baby. We're almost there.
Hour number 3, our third and final now. At DRS, as we get started here in this third and final hour, one final question about Shedeur Sanders. We have given you our thoughts. The NFL, of course, gave you their thoughts on where he actually slots in to the 2025 NFL Draft. Now with some retrospective, if you will, we look back on where Shedeur Sanders was selected and where you all think he should have gone in the NFL Draft. That was the question in Fade the Public. When should Shedeur Sanders have been drafted? At SportsGrid on Twitter, that was the question. Round 1, rounds 2 or 3, rounds 4 through 7. Those were your 3 options. And basically, DRS, it's a pretty even split between round 2 and 3, and then that third option, rounds 4 through 7. Rounds 4 through 7 has actually taken the ever so slight lead, but about 44% now on rounds 2 or 3, about 46% on rounds 4 through 7.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting part, too. It's all when you're asking the question, like, hey, should Minnesota be up 3-1 with the Lakers? Like, yeah, they should be up 3-1. Why? Because they're up 3-1. If we ask the same question, where should Shedeur Sanders be drafted on Thursday before the draft started, it probably would be the complete opposite because you're going with the odds. The odds said he should have been a first-round draft pick, which is the way I voted. Now, granted, I'm not in the film room. I didn't watch a ton of Shedeur Sanders, but I'm just going by what people have watched him all season long with the mock drafts that had it. Nobody had him going 4th through 7th. So 46% right now voting on that are liars at this point because they understand where he got drafted, and that's where I'm going to vote. Oh, I never thought he was going to be a top 3 pick or a top 5 pick or a top 3-round pick. Yes, you did. The odds makers were telling you that, and so was everybody else, which is the shock of the draft that he went into the 5th round. So this poll would be completely obsolete and backwards if we asked this same question on Thursday to the results we're getting right now.
Sure.
Round 1, 9%. Stop it, people. Stop. Come on.
Yeah, I completely agree, DRS. You can be revisionist as much as you would like. I thought the Shedeur Sanders narrative throughout the weekend was absolutely insane. It was a media narrative where we saw what often becomes of something so online. And I'll just say this, Shedeur Sanders and his father welcome and thrive on the attention. When that is what you do, this is the negative of it. This is the downside of it. You are thrust into the spotlight and you need to take your serving of humble pie. But we had seen the narrative explode so much. Shedeur Sanders, conspiracy theories. Here is why the National Football League is passing on this guy time and again. To almost swing back the other way. For people to tell us he couldn't even start in the UFL is basically where it ended at the end of Friday night. It was ridiculous. Maybe the narrative on Shedeur Sanders was a little bit too high that he could be a round 1 talent. Here's where I stand on it, DRS. Was I overly surprised he was not a first-round pick? Yes. Was I shocked? Not necessarily, because throughout most of the draft process, the spot that seemed most likely was still the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21st overall for a quarterback class that I always thought at most had two QBs going in round number one. It just wasn't the second quarterback I expected on Thursday night. It was Jackson Dart instead of Shedeur Sanders. Am I stunned that it took him until the 5th round to get selected? Absolutely so. But the media narrative spun so far either which way that it was ridiculous. And when you have a media narrative like that, you basically open up the prospect for the public, as we are seeing here, to hate on that individual, to hate on his talent, to hate on his character. Last week at this time, he was minus 280 to be a first-round pick. If we put out this Fade the Public poll last week, and you can say that as revisionist history in its own place, it would have been 97% round one. So yeah, the narrative around Shedeur Sanders is a little bit insane. The reality is now this. He was a 5th-round pick by the Cleveland Browns. His expectations to start his NFL career are so much more humble than we probably all anticipated at this stage a week ago. He is not going in expected to be the face of the franchise. He will not enter that Browns organization expecting to be a starter at any point in 2025. Might he? That's a different question. But the expectations, Donnie, are to try to earn a job for this Cleveland franchise as a quarterback, whether that be a reserve or a 3rd stringer or heck, even a practice squad member. That is the task for Shedeur Sanders. We will see what his resolve and resilience is about to be as he embarks on his NFL future.
And 99% of the teams, when you show up to camp, will tell you, now it doesn't matter where you were drafted at. Now it's about competing on the field, knowing that the general manager will remind the coach where that player was drafted at and how they should play over said player who might be drafted behind. But also understand this. Dylan Gabriel was drafted in the 3rd round. Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. It's interesting how that is going to play out when the Browns told themselves the better quarterback is Gabriel, but now Shedeur is a talent. He's sitting out here. Do they get equal playing field? And again, I already tweeted out here on X. I do think Shedeur Sanders gets at least one game played next year because I don't think the Browns are going to be that great. And maybe you want to see what both of these quarterbacks have. But for that quarterback room to be shaping up where it could be a little bit toxic is very interesting to me. But again, getting back to the point and the premise of fading the public, where will he be drafted? 4 rounds, 4 through 7? Absolutely incorrect at that point here. There's a reason why he fell, which we may never get that exact answer from the teams that passed on him, because why would they spill the beans now if they were never going to take him? Those stories probably won't come out like they need to, but he was expected through the odds makers, particularly the FanDuel Sportsbook, and all of the people that analyze the draft. Mock 1 in the 1st round, and even could he go to the Giants at number 3 or trade up back in that round? They got Dart, they didn't get Sanders, and the fall was on at that point.
There were people, DRS, saying that the book has not been closed on the G-men taking Shedeur Sanders at number 3 overall, and then followed that up on Saturday morning by saying, the Giants, what are you guys kidding me? They were never going to take Shedeur Sanders number 3 overall. Shut them. It's just like, it's so crazy that you get both ends of that spectrum and the narrative trying to be correct in doing so and to make a statement for engagement. You're wrong, you've been wrong, and deal with the reality of the situation. It angers me because it's like we don't even like sports anymore. We just like the narrative around sports. We like the narrative around watching a sport more than we enjoy even watching the sport in the first place anymore. Also, in terms of the prank call thing, Jax Ulbrich deserves a little bit of hate, but he apologized. It was a dumb kid doing an ultra dumb thing. That's it. That's done. We don't need to do these grandstanding acts there either. Disappointing weekend around the NFL draft, if you ask me.